I want to welcome in the rest of our Powerhouse panel on this Thursday morning, Emerald. Then we can jump back into that. We've got commentary editor for the Washington Times, Kelly Sadler, with us. Project 21 National Advisory Board member Christopher Arps is here, and former Trump campaign aide Rick Gates is here. Emerald, I can tell you just had a thought. What's on your mind?
Well, you said it's not unusual. I remember when President Trump had just nominated former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who was then CIA director, to be Secretary of State after firing Rex Tillerson, and then we found out, oh, he's en route to North Korea.
Right.
So
right.
These things do happen.
They do happen, and I'm thinking my brain goes to Thanksgiving when you see, George W. Bush going into to Iraq to serve Thanksgiving dinner with the soldiers. Not something that they would announce for security reasons. Joe Biden made it very clear that we do not need boots on the ground anymore in Afghanistan after 20 years. Take a listen.
Our diplomacy does not hinge on having boots in harm's way, U.S. boots on the ground. We have to change that thinking. American troops shouldn't be used as a bargaining chip between warring parties and other countries.
Chris, there are just over 2,500 troops right now still in Afghanistan. The goal is to get them out by 9/11. Is that the right move right now?
I think it is the right move. Look, we've been in Afghanistan for 20 years. I think the American people are war weary. 2,500 troops in that country is not really a large enough force to really stop fighting if they wanted to. I think it's far different than in 2021 than it was in 2000 before all of the terrorism that was going on over there. I think we were ignoring Afghanistan, and that allowed the Taliban and al-Qaeda to join up and plot this dastardly deed on 9/11. I think this time around we will be monitoring the country more, even if we don't have troops. And I don't believe, like Lindsey Graham believes, that they'll be able to amass troops and do a surprise attack against us like they did in 2001.
Yeah, let me play you this. Lindsey Graham coming out. He is strongly opposed to removing these 2,500 troops. Take a listen to what he had to say yesterday.
President Biden, unfortunately, has chosen the highest risk option available, which is to leave no matter what. I am certain that our military advised against a unilateral withdrawal without conditions being met to protect the American homeland and our way of life from a future attack.
Rick Gates, we had Matt Tito on, was in the Marine Corps for a number of years. He was there, Operation Enduring Freedom in 2011, when there was more than 100,000 troops there. 2,500 troops right now. Shouldn't we be focused on the problems of 2021 and not 2001, 20 years later?
Yeah, and as Matt mentioned, there's a number of new technological advances that could, in essence, replace boots on the ground. But I think if you look at, there's a bigger problem here. And if this were an isolated incident, if we were just pulling troops out of Afghanistan on a one-off basis, then I think that would be one issue. But what's happening is you're seeing this perceived weakness of Biden as a U.S. president around the globe. So in the absence of troops in Afghanistan, by pulling troops out, you're going to have other countries like China and Russia and possibly Iran try to create mayhem in Afghanistan to destabilize the region. And that is a direct result of Biden's weakness. So there are other factors here at play that are going to impact, what Biden is doing. And that's going to be a big issue.
Well, it's fascinating, Rick, as well. And I'm just going to ask you one more because we've got other stuff going on right now. You think about the situation in Ukraine and Russia. China has been extremely aggressive toward Taiwan. Back to Ukraine right now. You have the numbers, but there are thousands of Russian troops amassed on the border. Same with the Ukrainians. If this does escalate, the Biden administration is going to be forced to respond. And that will very quickly divert our focus off almost everything else.
Well, and that's Putin's intended effect, right? Create, kind of distraction and then, kind of come in. That's exactly what he did in 2014. And you have 110,000 Russian troops along the border in Ukraine right now. And Biden had indicated he was going to send 2 warships. He has now pulled those back. And so you have this idea of Biden being very weak in the eyes of Putin. And it's going to create more intended consequences. So China is seeing this. So China is doing exercises over Taiwan. All of these have an impact around the globe, and they continue to destabilize certain regions around the world. And it's simply a reason because Biden not being able to lead effectively.
All right. Kelly Sadler from the Washington Times, you're with us. I think this is Yesterday, we saw Kimberly Potter, the officer in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota. She was charged. Second-degree manslaughter is the charge. Dante Wright, 20 years old. She thought she was using her taser, pulled out her Glock and shot him once, and he died from those injuries. There have been violent riots over the last 4 nights. Last night was maybe the worst night. Police were in riot gear. Tear gas was used, flash grenades, rubber bullets, all being used. These are not peaceful protests. Now that she's been charged, though, the argument will become, and she'll get her day in court, just like Derek Chauvin has right now. But intent is going to be difficult to prove in a case like this, because the defense is going, or the prosecution is going to have to prove that she woke up on Sunday morning with the intent to commit a homicide. I think negligence is very clear, but what are your thoughts?
Well, she was on the force for 26 years. She should have been well-trained and experienced and had the temperament to deal with this situation, and she did not. So, you know, we'll have to see. She is granted. She's a United States citizen. There's due process. We'll hear from her side of things. But just the video cam footage just does not look good. But I'd like to make another point in terms of how this civil unrest is affecting us on the global sphere. You have China, you have Russia. Basically, you know, when they met in Alaska, when Blinken met with this Chinese delegation in Alaska last month, they brought up Black Lives Matter. They brought up this social division, and they're using it to tear our country apart. They think the Biden administration is more focused on, you know, Black Lives Matter. And you have John Kerry in Shanghai today talking about climate change and these abstract issues that they can get away now with dominating the globe.
Yeah, very good points. Panel, great conversation as always. We will see you guys tomorrow. Appreciate the time this morning. But my goodness, a lot going on out there. And I'm so glad that you're all with us, too, to break this all down.